Good afternoon, welcome to MEED Live. We have a very special edition of MEED Live today. We are looking at the GCC construction industry, at some of the challenges that face the industry, but more importantly, we're looking forward to how the industry is starting to respond to those challenges. And it's particularly significant today because we're launching Time for Change. This is a new report that has been produced by DLA Piper, the international law firm, together with MEED, looking at the GCC construction industry and the change that's underway in the industry and the pressures that are leading to those changes. I'm joined today by the authors of the report. So I have on my far right, I have Susanna Newbolt. Good afternoon, Susanna.
Good afternoon.
You're a partner with DLA Piper. You've nearly a decade's worth of experience
Yes, that's right.
in the GCC construction industry, and you're a particular specialist in construction disputes.
That's correct,
So
yes.
you're exactly the right person to be with us today talking about this report. And we're also joined by Colin Foreman, MEED's deputy editor, you've been at MEED for how many years now covering construction?
Since 2005.
2005, so 13 years. So we have a huge amount of knowledge about the construction industry. We have this Time for Change report, which we're going to be talking about. So this report, Time for Change, construction in the GCC reaches a tipping point. I'm quite intrigued by just the name of the report itself. We call it Time for Change and Tipping Point. What are we talking about? What's the tipping point we're talking about?
Well, we're all very aware of what the pressures and challenges are that the industry faces here in the GCC. And what struck us was just how long it's been the same pressures causing the same challenges, pervading the industry for the last few years. And that prompted us to carry out an investigation into it and to examine those pressures and work out what might cause change or what could cause change and what that change would look like. And actually what we found was that there are already small changes happening. Mm-hmm. And that now is the time for those small changes to tip over into significant changes for the industry.
So there are what I guess we're talking about then is pressures that have been there all the time, but circumstances in the environment, say oil prices or cutbacks in government spending, that's suddenly exposed those pressures and it's pushed the industry into this tipping point. That's what we're talking about?
I think we were looking at the same pressures seemingly having gone on now for several years and no change happening, or seemingly no change happening. But when we scratch the surface of that, there are these small incremental changes, and now is ripe for that to tip into.
Okay.
What Susanna said is really, really, really important. I think there's been a lot said in the region over the last few years about late payments and payments not being made. And there's a subtle difference, although from someone who's being paid, it's effectively the same thing about variation. So there's people still getting paid what they're meant to be paid on schedule. That, by and large, isn't the major problem in the market at the moment. It has been in some places for brief periods. The big problem is variations. So for the person being paid, they still feel like they're not being paid. Yeah. But then on the other side of the fence, the employer thinks, well, I have paid you. There's just work that you're claiming you've done, which I'm not convinced.
So this all comes down.
That's one of the that's the reason why it's such a sensitive and difficult issue to deal with at the moment. So a lot of the time when we're talking about payment problems and people not being paid for work, from the payer's side of things, they are paying. And from the person that's being paid, they feel like they're not being paid sufficiently. So that's the source of tension that's coming through there.
What's your feeling on the mood in the market? So whether it's clients or contractors, is it frustration, or people? We hear about people leaving the region, internationals.
Yeah, there is a great deal of frustration, and we are seeing some of that manifest itself on people being pushed so far, contractors particularly being pushed so far, that they are deciding to exit the market. And there's high levels of insolvency in the supply chain as well. So there is a real feeling that it has to change. So yes, there's frustration, and that frustration is leading to a conclusion that change isn't an option. Change is now inevitable. It has to happen.
It's time for change.
It's time for change, and it's not just the contractors saying that; it's the developers saying that as well.
Okay, so there are 5 key changes that you have identified in this report. I'm going to put them up on screen now. If you, Susanna, if you just want to talk through, summarise the 5 key changes that this report has identified, and then what we'll do is we'll go into the detail of the report. Susanna, do you just want to talk through briefly what these points are?
So the first change is that we expect to see greater impartiality of project management consultants and engineers. And an impact of that, of course, will be, or should be, that it unlocks the cash flow and we see fewer disputes. We're anticipating, in fact, we're already seeing a greater amount of external funding, be that within region or international. And what that will bring with it is a more sophisticated contracting environment. We're seeing an environment whereby those top-tier contractors will enjoy more attractive tendering procedures, better contract terms, and more collaborative relationships on those global standard projects. And we're also already seeing, but going to see much more, legislation aimed at increasing standards to global standards, which in itself will increase the barriers to entry for new contractor entrants into the market. And we're going to see quicker methods of dispute resolution.